Greetings. Today, I would like to speak about a term called ambiguous loss when it comes to missing children. This is a term that was coined by a researcher called Dr. Pauline Boss, and it just speaks to the uncertainty of a family and loved ones when a person goes missing. And this is something that complicates, confuses, and just blocks resolution when it comes to the persons affected. Because honestly, if you put yourselves in the family, especially maybe the parents and loved ones of a missing child, when do you stop searching for your child? When do you say, this is it? I have accepted that I don't have this child. How do you mourn? There's a lot of different things that are faced by these families. And especially if we come to the aspect of just culturally, in the aspect of missing child Kenya, this is from a cultural perspective as an African or a Kenyan. First, I will say I'm speaking to this not as an expert, but as a practitioner who has a child protection practitioner who has been part of the lived experience of the families that we have assisted over the last 9 years since our inception as Missing Child Kenya. And we have seen what they have undergone in terms of what we are calling ambiguous loss. But let me get back to what I was talking about in African culture. In African culture, the topic of missing persons is rarely discussed. We have stories about people who went missing, they were never heard of. It is spoken in harsh tones. Mostly, we may focus on the initial search and then we attribute it to a lot of other factors, especially when it comes to cultural rootings. And so it is sometimes considered bad omen to talk about them, or we do certain rituals to completely forget about them. So we also have another complicated issue when it comes to who we are as Africans and how we deal with issues of missing persons or missing children per se. One example I can give is the Chibok girls, the Nigerian case, the Bring Back Our Girls hashtag that raised a lot of worldwide concern and helped bring some of these girls back. But if we look at the families, there's a lot of things that went on with those families. Some of these families separated, some of these families underwent a lot of stress, some of these families were just disintegrated because there was a lot of things when it came to the ambiguous loss of their child or their children or the girls that were taken away. Back to our casework at Missing Child Kenya. If I look at ambiguous loss, across cultures, we know what to do when it comes to a defined loss, when it's a death and funeral announcement, and we have a body to inter or take care of, bury in any other way. We know what to do when a verified loss occurs, the cultural practices, the expectations. But when an unverified loss occurs, we do not know what to do, and this is the limbo that most of these families are in terms of what do we do. Number one of the things that they may encounter is lack of closure. There's an endless loop of searching and waiting, searching and waiting. I'll give a few examples of what happens in our casework management. You will find that there's a parent who's on our pages endlessly, year in, year out, just looking, asking. They call back on our toll free line, they call back on our support lines. Some of them have my personal number and they call back and say, what's happening to my case? Have you forgotten about my child? Are you still searching for my child? Because a parent's greatest fear is that people will forget about their child and move on to other things. And honestly, it happens. It happens because just last week we were talking about missing children. This week we are talking about another issue, another devastating issue about around children. Have we given it more importance? Of course, based on what is happening right now, there's more urgency towards the matter. It doesn't mean that the other cases have been forgotten in some instances, but it just means attention and media conversation and everything around it would go to the current issue that is happening. All these are issues concerning children, but where does this place the parent of a missing child? They feel that people have forgotten about their child and they have moved on. So there's the endless loop, sorry, of searching and waiting. That is something they face, lack of closure. A second thing is social disenfranchisement. What do we mean by this? Society doesn't recognize ambiguous laws or how to deal with it. And so you get comments that may not pass as sensitive to us as parents. Oh, you need to move on now, leave it to God. You know, you can always hold their memory in a different way. Sometimes people say, get another child, and they don't understand that that does not replace the other missing child. So families, because of this, families receive less emotional support because we also don't know how to support them with their ambiguous loss. We feel, and that is why you find in some African cultures, we bury a banana stalk and say we have actually conducted a burial. And so pass your grief onto that banana stalk. And that is just still painful to the parent of a missing child. So that disenfranchisement, because society does not know how to deal with them and they're still wallowing in their grief, trying to grieve in their own way and understand what is going on, they get separated and they don't get understood and they feel not supported by us. um, what I've experienced in this is families turn up at our annual events for International Missing Children's Day. You find a parent on social media, maybe every post of a missing child, they're on it, they're commenting, they're also praying for that child that is missing there while they're asking about their other child. It's just different things. And so it's complicated for them. And then another thing that they face is also complicated decision making. Complicated decision making, like when do we have someone declared legally dead? When do we say that this person is dead? And so, what are the rules and regulations in Kenya about a legally missing? Sorry, confirming a person as legally dead after they've been missing for a certain amount of time. Are you ready to do that? What are the legal implications of doing that? What if this person is found again? So it's a lot of things that complicate this. And then there's just ongoing trauma. Every time there's a new lead, a new sighting, it brings up old wounds. I know of a parent who lost a 3 year old. Her 3 year old boy is still missing, and every alert of a missing child who is 3 years old that comes up, she looks at it and she says, that's my child. That's my child. You need to look at it. I need to go where this child is. Even though the photos are really totally different, she's stuck in that loop that every 3 year old boy that she sees somewhere opens up the wounds in her about her missing son. So when we look at it, why does this matter? This matters because these families are facing something that is unexplainable. We also, as a community, don't know how to handle it or deal with it, but it is their trauma and they're facing this trauma. And one of the things that we can do is to try keep the memory of those children alive as much as possible. Why do I say this? When you talk to some of these families, you find that a parent is talking about their child in the present. And maybe it's been 6, 7 years because they're still holding on to that memory. You might find that some of the questions that are asked are sometimes asked in the past tense, like, what was that child wearing? What was, and you find this person, this parent or this family member is replying in the present continuous tense. It shows where they're stuck in. They're stuck in a purgatory of sorts, a limbo of sorts where they do not know what to do. How can we extend more grace to these families? Keeping the memory of their children alive, letting them grieve in their own way, understanding that they are stuck in a gap that cannot be filled, and just being a listening ear to them and saying, hey, do you want to talk about it? If do you want to just come spend time with us? Do you want to share this in another way, so that they know that they're not forgotten and their child is not forgotten? Extend grace to these families. And as we continue, please visit our platforms, share any information you have about these missing children, and it will help bring them back home to their families.